Hello there, friends. We are continuing on with the Neetcode practice problems. We're staying in the arrays and hashing table. I'm going to jump into the next one on the list, which is encode and decode, string encode and decode. So this asks us to design an algorithm to encode a list of strings to a single string. The encoded string is then decoded back to the original list of strings. Please implement encode and decode. The examples show exactly what is described here, so the input looks the same as the output. It's a list of strings. I think that the examples are probably better suited in the solution itself, so we'll go into it there. About the constraints, the array will never exceed 100, but it could be 0, so there could be an empty array, and then the characters in the string itself could be up to 200 characters, as well as an empty string. So it could be just a totally empty array with no characters in it. We'd still have to account for that. However, the characters will be UTF-8 standard. So moving on. So I want to start first by just setting up our return type, which is always the same as the method we're working in. In the case of encode, it's just going to be a string. I'll call it res for result, and then return it, and then go over what we'll be doing. And then for decode, it's going to be a vector string, so a list of strings. Call it result again, return it. That's done and dusted, out of the way. Now let's talk about what we're actually going to be doing to each one of these data structures. So in the case of the result for encode, we're going to go through each string in the array, and then for each string we're going to concatenate three things. First, the length of the string, then some kind of delimiter to differentiate between words once we have our long string, and then finally the string itself. And then when we go to decode, we'll have that long string. We're going to iterate through that input, keeping track of each of the delimiter as we go, and then keep track of the length of the substring for each word, which will be part of the string, and then push our substring into our result structure, and then move the iterator forward to the next word. Okay, so we're saying now for each string in the list, we're going to say res plus equals to concatenate. First, the length of the string, so we're going to turn the string.size into a string, so two strings, string.size, plus our delimiter, and then the string itself. So, for example, let's say we have an array with these 4 words, they not like us. So what we'll get out of it is this 4 at they, 4 being the length of the string, 3 at not, 4 at like, 2 at us. Then we have this super long string that we're going to be iterating through and then putting back into our list of strings. So here we have our input string, and we're going to iterate through it. We'll have I starting at 0, and then while I is less than the size of our input string, we're going to be tracking the delimiter. So that's going to be the index of the delimiter. We can use we can use s.find to specify what we're looking for and where we want to start. So at is going to give us the value 1, which is the index of where the delimiter is. For length, we're going to use stoi, which is string to integer, to take the substring and turn that into an integer. So the substring that we want, we're going to specify we're going to start at where the iterator currently is and move along through the difference between where the iterator is and where the delimiter is. So I wanted to just jump back in here and have like a special conversation about this particular line here, which threw me off a little bit. So I just wanted to go over it for a sec and explain. So let's start with the first iteration where we have these values. Okay, I equals 0, the at is at index 1, and then length of the first one is 4. So let's say we're here. So what we're saying here is we're gonna create an integer out of a string, but first we need to create a substring, and the substring says, okay, where do you want to start? Well, I want to start at the position of the iterator and then move along the difference between the delimiter and the iterators. Right, so in this case, the difference is only ever 1 because the words are less than 9 characters. But if the word were 10 or more characters, like say the word is encephalography, all right, we have a 14 character word, so this would then be 14 at encephalography, right? And then 2 at or 3 at EEG, right? So in this case, it would look like this, and you would have to account for both of these digits. So the difference between the delimiter and the iterator now is no longer just the number 1. This still works in this case because it would be the delimiter would be at 2 and the index would be at 0, so the difference would then be, both of these, which we would then turn into this. So I hope that explanation makes better sense of this line, which can be, can be pretty daunting and can be pretty confusing. Hopefully that makes sense of it for you, because it was confusing for me. So then what we're going to do there is, now that we have our integers, the integers that we need, the length and then the position of the delimiter, we're going to push a substring starting just after the index of the delimiter and going all the way through to the length of the string, which has already been taken out of there and specified. Finally, we move the iterator forward to the next word. So we're going to say that our iterator is going to now equal the position of the delimiter plus the length of the word plus 1. That'll get us right to where we need to be. We're now at index 6. So our iterator is at 6. Our delimiter is at index 7. Our length is, once again, the difference between the delimiter and the iterator. And then we push our substring starting just after the delimiter for the length of the word. We move the iterator forward to the next word once again by telling it to go to the position of the delimiter plus the length of the word plus 1. The iterator is now at 11. The delimiter is at 12. The length of the next word is 4. And so we can push those next 4 characters into our result. Move the iterator again forward based on the relative position of the delimiter, the length of the word, and 1. And then finally, iterators at 17, delimiter 18, the length of the word is 2. So let's push those 2 characters into our data structure. And at this point, the iterators now reach the end of the string input, so we can jump out, submit the code, fix our error, which in this case, I just forgot to do a terminator semicolon. And yeah, that does it. That about does it. Thanks. Another one off the list.